This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com. We've talked about this a lot before in our Shawn Michaels episode, so check it out in somethingtowrestle.com. But I do want to briefly mention that we've got some major news as we head into this show. The famous, or rather infamous, incident involving Shawn Michaels being beaten up outside of a Syracuse club happened not too far before this. It was Friday, October 13th. Shawn Michaels is hanging out with Davey Boy Smith and the 1-2-3 Kid. They're at a club having a little night out on the town, and they're on their way out, and different reports would indicate that Michaels may or may not have flirted with someone inside that perhaps he shouldn't have. And, I guess it's pretty well established from everyone who was in the conversation that he had maybe been overserved, maybe a little too tipsy. And in the police report, apparently largely derived from Waltman, the men who instigated the incident were yelling insults at the driver of the car, Donna Jones, and not at Shawn Michaels. The police report stated that Michaels was in the front seat, but was intoxicated and passed out and actually asleep when he's pulled out of the car and pummeled. He effectively had no chance to defend himself. And the police report stated that Shawn would suffer a laceration on the right eyelid and right below the cheek, 2 black eyes, swelling, and of course, blood coming from the ears and the right eye. Oof, pretty bad deal. And it stated that there were 3 people in the back seat of this 2-door car: Shawn Waltman, Davey Boy Smith, and a third person named Robert Jones, with Davey Boy in the middle between the two, which, because of his size and it being a 2-door car, probably compounded the time that it took for him to get out of the car and try to help his pal Shawn Michaels. And the police reported at the time there were 10 assailants, not 9, and said the fight was ultimately broken up by the driver of that vehicle, Donna Jones, who was apparently the girlfriend of a bouncer at the Club 37 in the Ponderosa Plaza in Syracuse, all of which where this was taking place in front of. And she ran into the club, and 2 bouncers came out, and the perpetrators escaped. And wouldn't you know it, 2 white Ford Broncos. One of the Broncos turned around and attempted to run over one of the bouncers. And the police report stated that nothing about the perpetrators being Marines or servicemen, although the entire group had the old short crew cut style haircuts. Well, we've talked about this a lot. It's certainly been discussed a lot. You guys are going to turn it into an angle, and we'll talk about that momentarily, but what's the word you remember hearing when you first get the report that one of your biggest stars, sort of the next big thing, and maybe the occasional pain in your ass, had quite the night here in Syracuse?
Well, I got the call later that night, at home. So we were made aware of it, the wee hours of the morning, and no one really knew what condition that Shawn was in at that point, other than he'd had the hell beat out of him and was in a local hospital. So anything more than that, we just didn't really know, didn't know how bad his head injuries were or anything else. So it was Jim Myers, I believe, George Animal Steel, who was the agent on record that was there that night, that I believe is the one that went to the hospital to try and find out what the hell happened. But, you know, there've been so many different stories and so many different versions of what actually took place, and the people that were involved in it, I dare say, weren't in any condition to really remember what the hell actually took place. So your guess is probably as good as mine as to what really happened that night. And I think that from all the different versions, somewhere in the middle lies the truth. But all we really know for sure is at the end of the day, Shawn had the living shit kicked out of him, had a bad concussion, and a lot of injuries coming out of it, and fucked up a lot of shit.
Was there any heat on Shawn or Davey on the Waltman or Davey on the other side of this?
I think there was more than anything an awareness, like, what the fuck are you doing? Being that messed up and going out, and the boys look after the boys. So it was, where the hell were you? You know, what happened? And don't go out and get so screwed up that you don't remember what the hell happened. So it was an opportunity for a lesson to be learned, hopefully, from some people. And don't be stupid more than anything.
We should mention the next year at the Slammies, Bret Hart couldn't help himself, and he made a comment about the quote unquote 9 cheerleaders who beat up Shawn in Syracuse. And he sort of challenged the authenticity of the incident. There's lots of conspiracy theories in wrestling, and certainly in this era, a lot of people had already decided they didn't like Shawn Michaels. And, some of that includes people who wrote newsletters, but was there ever any doubt as to whether or not this was legitimate when you've got a couple of witnesses there?
Well, not only a couple of witnesses, but you're checked into a hospital with
Yeah.
your eyes swollen shut and concussions and unconscious and just look, if it were a work, it was a hell of a work.
Oh, I'm not insinuating it was a work at all. It's just, it feels unnecessary that people, oh, it was 9 cheerleaders and, oh, he must not have wanted to drop a belt, or it's like, did you see him? It's not exactly like he made that up. And we should mention that midweek, Shawn Michaels sees a neurosurgeon who advises him against taking the trip to Winnipeg and strongly advises against him wrestling. And Meltzer would be critical of this and saying that perhaps an announcement should have been made prior to the pay-per-view, and they should have gotten in front of this. Do you agree in hindsight, maybe it could have been handled a little better than ultimately what you guys wound up doing at the pay-per-view?
I think if we had actually had, things set up differently as far as doctors seeing Shawn and being able to get to Shawn and make that determination, it was one of those where, from our vantage point, we hadn't seen Shawn, we hadn't talked to Shawn, and you're hearing a lot of this and a lot of that. So if it's that bad, you want him to be checked out by doctors and to know exactly what the hell the extent of the damages are. So I think that there was some doubt and probably some hope that maybe it's not as serious as we think. And I think you hang on to that glimmer of hope at times, oftentimes too often, that you get bit. And this is an opportunity. This is one of those situations where we got bit.
We'll talk about Shawn Michaels' appearance on the show in a little bit, but we should mention this whole incident was acknowledged on Monday Nitro with one of Mean Gene's 900 line come-ons, where he said a WWF star came out on the short end of a fight with a fan, which is not exactly what happened. It's, do you just look at that when you hear that they're poking fun at this and think, this is just them being quarter hot about the whole billionaire Ted and Nacho Man and Huckster shit?
I think it's a combination of all the above. And I always thought that those 900 numbers were usually in poor taste anyway. And it's just like the headlines that you read today for the dirt sheets, and it's clickbait, and it was dial bait, I guess, back then, but not a big fan of it.
Yeah. It's, less than ideal.
Did you ever dial the 900 number and get Mean Gene's tip or JR's?
Boy, you really ask me a question we've never talked about before, but I had a little bit of a scam.
That's why I asked you the question.
I had a scammer hookup. I had a backdoor number to call, and I got to hear the shit every day and didn't pay $1.
Back in 1995?
Well, 97. 97. I could get the
Did you ever call it before you had the hookup?
No, I had to get my parents' permission. I'm not an asshole.
Okay. Well, how old were you then?
In 95?
Yeah.
14.
Oh, okay.
I was also not watching wrestling.
So, but at 16, you had a hookup.
Yes.
Well, that's just fucked up, Connie.
Once I learned to drive, I just drove around town till I found somebody.
You have somebody giving out codes on the corner. Hey, little boy,
you got that WCW holla. What's Mean Gene saying today? Hey.
Yeah, look, man, I didn't like ours. I just thought that it was kind of, stemming from that dirt sheet world and that dirt world. I always loved the National Enquirer because of the dirt. But I knew that it was dirt, that 99% of it was bullshit. But he kind of went there. And so I understood the attraction to it, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, good Lord, man. It was all just a scam to get you to pay that $2 a minute.
Oh, it's 99 cents a minute. God damn it. At 1-900-909-9900.
Okay.
Anyway, let's talk about ours. No, that was Scheme Jeans.
Okay.
His was way better than yours.
No, it wasn't.
Oh yeah.
Ours was truthful.
Sure it was. Let's talk about the rough week Shawn Michaels had. So we know he gets the hell beat out of him on October 13th. October 5th, he's at an afternoon charity show at Madison Square Garden, and Shawn Michaels was allegedly confronted by the Blue Brothers in the dressing room. According to the story, Don Harris put a chair against the dressing room door to keep anyone from coming in, and Ron Harris snatched Michaels by the throat and held him against the wall or shoved him into the wall, depending on who you believe. But Michaels had a scare thrown into him. It wasn't roughed up or hurt to the point he missed any dates. But the Blue Brothers' final night with the promotion was 4 days later. So no disciplinary actions taken. But there's a lot of rumor and innuendo as to what went down here and what created this incident. But most people just say, well, personal disagreements. And that's not exactly a stretch when you think about the heat-seeking missile that Shawn Michaels was in this era. Do you remember the Blue Brothers, Ron and Don, wanting to beat the hell out of Shawn?
Yeah, I don't think they were alone. I think that there were probably a lot of guys that may have wanted to beat the hell out of Shawn during this time period in his career. The Blues Brothers, big guys, tough guys, great guys. Actually, I mean, super nice guys. And the sidebar, they were two guys that I kind of looked at and went, shit, they should have done so much more in the business. And that's one of those situations of that it factor that you couldn't put your finger on because they were big, they were nasty, had a great look, and they weren't bad workers.
Right.
So it just was one of those, and two nicer guys you couldn't find. So that was always a puzzle in some ways. But look, I heard the same rumors. The only people that know what actually happened, if anything did at all, is going to be Ron and Don and Shawn. Ron, Don, and Shawn. That sounds like a fucking 60s hip hop song. Yeah.
They walk into a bar.
Yeah.
Only one gets drug out by non-Marines. Let's talk about the next match. Before we do, we should talk about Shawn Michaels. He comes out next. He's been in a monster babyface run since WrestleMania 11. He won the Intercontinental belt from Jeff Jarrett at the second In Your House in Nashville. And he's going to lose it here tonight without ever wrestling a match. Michaels would be written up in the newsletter as this. Shawn Michaels appeared totally out of character with noticeable marks around his face, particularly under the eyes and around the upper lip at the Winnipeg pay-per-view show, walking slowly to the ring to hand the IC title to Douglas and walking away looking incredibly sad. As weird irony would have it, Michaels appeared in character on a show that aired the next morning, taped before the incident, on the Danny Bonaducci talk show, talking about being a chick magnet. Man, this is sort of a famous moment where we see Shawn come to the ring and hand the title to Dean Douglas. It would be replayed a lot. Shawn's teary walk to the ring in that rather colorful jacket. What do you remember about this spectacle?
Well, it was sad, first of all, because you sit there and once you saw Shawn and you realize that this has now had almost a week or more. It's had a while to heal up. Okay. And you sit there and you think about, holy shit, how bad it must have been. And I actually did see pictures of him in the hospital, and it wasn't pretty by any stretch of the imagination. So it was tough. You had to do something. And I think that there was a segment of the audience that felt Well, is this real? Is it not? So you show Shawn, you show the injuries to his face, you show the injuries, and make a story out of it. Is the best that you can. You're dealt a set of cards, and you got to play them the best way that you can at the time.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.